Just a couple short words. On behalf of the council, I'd like to welcome you to this kickoff event for the Wethersfield Early Childhood Collaborative. Since the group began their work in 2004, they have worked very hard to get to this point, to present to our community their plans and next steps. This project is very near and dear to my heart as a pediatric nurse for over 36 years, as well as having served on the Board of Education for 8 years and 10 years on council. I'm very excited about this plan that the collaborative is bringing forward. It really is a grassroots effort to explore the needs of our youngest community members, but the important factor is the items reviewed have been looked at from a global perspective, and that's not always the case with many different projects. Children are our future, so this is a great focus for the community. You may or may not be surprised by the results of the findings, and want you to know that these grants have really afforded us the unique opportunity to view the needs of our youngest. So without further delay, let me turn it back over to Kathy and Maggie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Also with us tonight is our school superintendent, Michael Emmett. Michael's also been part of this process even before he became superintendent. As the assistant superintendent, he also attended some of our meetings and provided valuable insight for us. And as superintendent, he's worked with us. We've done, as you can see through the plan, a lot of information from the school district was critical to us moving forward with the plan. And they worked with us every day to make sure we had the information we needed. And we're very thankful for that. I want to thank Michael and Sally DeStali, another member of our committee, who really worked with us to get all that information. Because as you go through it and see it, you're going to see how much of it is from the school system, helping us look at the children in the community. So Michael, I thank you and invite you to come up.
Thank you, Kathy. You kind of stole my thunder because I have to tell you, I was coming up here to thank you and thank all the members of the community. You mentioned the word collaboration, and as school superintendent, I see nothing more important than the word collaboration. We as a school district can certainly not do it alone. We need the support of parents. We need the support of our elected officials. We need the support of our residents. It was funny, over the course of the summer, I was in my spare time doing some coursework, and I was presented with a challenge to put aside any worries about money, any worries about bureaucracy, and to develop my own model school. So I spent a couple weeks over the course of the summer pondering this and working on this, and I came up with Emmett's Elementary School, a birth to 6. And when I was sitting here, when I came in tonight and I started looking through the book here, I noticed so many similarities. So I think it had to be osmosis that I picked it up over the course of the summer. But quite frankly, the work that we do in the schools is so vitally important. And having the support of the Wethersfield community and having the support of parents will help our students make the gains necessary to be successful individuals, successful adults, and will make our town that much better in the future. So on behalf of the Wethersfield Public Schools, myself along with Mrs. DeSole, I want to say thank you to the Wethersfield community for supporting us and helping us do the good work that we do. Thank you.
One thing I forgot is I have both the mayor and the superintendent sat down. We were going to ask them to sign in on our logo. This is going to be our visual support, so that all of you in the audience, before you leave tonight, as part of the process to support the work that we're going to be doing in the implementation phase, is to have everyone sign in to support the process. So as we ask you to speak, or as you get up, or as you're walking by, if we've captured your interest, and I think we will tonight, please sign in, because we still are looking for new members. So if those of you in the audience that are hearing it for the first time, if we pique your interest, let us know, talk with us, and we'll be working with you. Probably you want to be careful, because actually the implementation phase is going to be the fun phase. So all the hard work is done. The plan's in front of us. So now we just get to move forward with it. I'd like to take a moment. We have some distinguished guests in the audience that I'd like to recognize. And first I'd like to ask Russ Moran, our state representative, to come up and say a few words. And Russ has also been supported and has attended many of our events, so thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be very brief because I'm most interested in hearing what people that are truly experts have to say. I want to thank all of you for stepping forward and showing your leadership for the most important cause, taking care of our kids. I'm a father. I'm not an expert in this field, but I'm a dad, and hopefully someday I'll be a grandfather, and I'll be able to see some of the fruits of your labors as young children get treated in a different manner than we ever have. It's a great way to go, and I really appreciate the willingness of the town, Board of Ed, to work together, and I commit to you that working with Senator Fonfara, we'll do everything we can at the state level to ensure success. So I thank you very much, and have a great evening.
Sign this.
Oh, we don't, it's your signature, we don't care. I'd also like to recognize in the audience tonight one of our town council members who's also been the liaison from the town council to our collaborative, Jerry Roberts. I know I saw Jerry. Yep, Jerry's here. Jerry, thank you for your time. And representing the town manager tonight, our assistant town manager, Ray Ann Palmer, is here this evening. Wade, thank you. Also with us tonight, we're so pleased that a representative from the Graustein Memorial Fund, Madeline Davila, is here this evening. Sorry.
So, thank you for having me. And, I actually have to go pick up my youngest. So unfortunately, I can't stick around for the rest of it. But I'm really excited. It's been amazing to kind of watch the movement in Wethersfield over the last few years. It's kind of been incredible. And I'm really excited to see the momentum that goes in these years. Kind of seems to represent a machine that's really kind of getting going. So it's exciting to be part of that.
Well, and before you leave, if you can sign in and win. I'm going to get everybody to sign tonight, but we truly want to thank the Graustein Memorial Fund because they've provided so much guidance and assistance. They've given us the grant, but what we don't mention, they provide a lot of training for the collaborative members. That's all free to collaborative members to help us even be better at doing this process. So we're very appreciative of all that's offered to us. So thank you. And also from the Graustein Memorial Fund, currently she's our liaison to the Memorial Fund and to our collaborative. But during the 2 years we did for the community planning process, Cynthia Barrera, who's here this evening, was also our consultant to help us through the process. Because as you can see, you get to see the finished project. It's a lot of work that went into that, and Cindy kept us on the straight and narrow because you could go a lot of different directions. So Cindy, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we can't go any farther without taking a moment also. She doesn't know this was in the program, but we also want to thank Marie Massaro, who's the coordinator for the collaborative. She's done a lot of work with us, and we really appreciate everything and want to say thanks. The finished product, we called her the chief editor because she had to take everybody's style and kind of mesh it together and work with our designer to put the plan together and make sure that it was written so people could understand it and make it available. We wanted everybody in the community to be able to understand it. And Cindy took all our different writing styles and combined it into the plan. Marie, I'm sorry. Well, Cindy and Marie worked together. But Marie did a lot of work, and she keeps the collaborative moving forward. It wasn't just a plan, but working with all of us because we could all be interesting people. And she kept us all going. I thought that was nice, you know? We all come from different backgrounds, so you can imagine blending us together and keep us moving, and we finished on time. So that's pretty good, you know? So we want to say thank you. And then we've mentioned a couple times how different members of the collaborative were all working together, and we had a lot of assistance. We'd like to take a little time just to identify some key partners in the collaborative because they stepped forward to work with us in different roles. And the Central Connecticut Health District, we have a representative on our collaborative, and they graciously allow staff time to work with us. And Paul Hutchin, the director of the health district, is here. Yep. So Paul, thank you. And also from the Tri-Town Y, Sean Famangia. Did I get that right?
Fonjami.
Fonjami. Thank you.
Close.
I was close. Okay.
It's easy.
I was practicing.
Exactly.
Sean is the director of the Tri-Town YMCA. He came on in April, so we've been filling him in and catching him up to speed, and he's got a lot of great ideas as we move forward for implementation. And also the Y is the fiduciary agent for the grant process. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes in that regard. So thank you, Sean. And not here this evening is Laura Goodgen from the library, our library director. She's had staff working with us over the years. She's been a member of the collaborative over the years. And the library's been doing a lot of good work that's fitting in so well with the direction the collaborative is going in. You'll hear more about that later, but we want to thank Laura also for her ability to allow her staff to work with us too. So thank you to Laurel. I already called her today and told her I was going to thank her tonight. So actually gave her the plan. So she was told me she was going to go home and read it. I was pretty excited about that. So those are some of the people, and throughout the rest of the evening we'll be mentioning others of the collaborative because everybody on the collaborative did a great job, and we can't say enough to thank them for all the work they put in. I'm going to turn it over to Maggie now.
We have two speakers here tonight. First, I'd like to introduce Senator John Fonfara. He represents the 1st Senatorial District communities of Hartford and Wethersfield. He's the Vice Chair of the Education Committee and has been involved and supportive of our collaborative for many years. And it's a pleasure to have him here tonight.
Thank you, Maggie and Kathy, Marie, and everyone else who has been leaders on this effort. The mayor and the superintendent, I know your dedication to education in Wethersfield, and coming from Hartford and representing Wethersfield now for 16 years, that scares me too when I think about it. I've learned how important education is in this town, how it is part of the fabric of this community. It is second to none in terms of importance. There's a lot of talk in town about taxes and about spending and about roads and about the Silas Dean Highway and about one issue after another. And those are all very important issues, and they certainly get debated a lot. But there is no issue that comes close in importance in this community than education. And there's a reason for that, because that's what individuals in town, it's not a political issue, it's not a Democrat or Republican issue, it's not a partisan issue, it's about people who live here who have said with their voices and their pocketbooks, and sometimes with their door knocking, as in the case of the high school referendum not too long ago, that they have said how important education is to this community. And I want to congratulate all those who have taken part in the collaborative. When I was asked a couple of years ago to participate, I said, I'll be there because I have come to realize how critical early childhood education is in preparing young people for learning. And for so long, that was the domain, and still is in many, many homes in this state, many communities in this state, still is the domain of parents. That I would say the vast majority. We are very fortunate in Connecticut to have such a
a strong commitment to education, where so many parents have benefited from a good education themselves and realize what it means in their quality of life and the abilities to achieve one's goals in life, either individually or collectively in a community, and where it all starts. And much of that is not something that we have to legislate. I would say almost none of it is something we have to legislate. It's not something we have to argue about. It's something that is understood in most homes in this state, in most homes in this town, but not in all towns, and not in all homes. And the reality is, in those communities, in those homes where education has not been a successful experience, the challenge to bring those children to a point of readiness for learning, something that we ask the superintendent and all of the people who work under him to do, the responsibility that we increasingly give to teachers and to administrators to bring children up to a place that we expect them to be, I think, candidly, is unfair. I think is too much of a challenge to put at the doorstep or at the feet of teachers and administrators. And oftentimes it's, unfortunately, maybe too late in the process to expect that child, those children, to be able to compete in this increasingly global competitive environment, educationally and then economically and in terms of employment. It's a tremendous challenge. Now, I'll speak for a second because although I'm listed here as vice chair, I have to tell you, in the legislature, vice chairs mean nothing. It's the chairman and then there's everybody else. And if you're chairman, you're in great shape in terms of making the rules. If you're everybody else, well, you hope. And even vice chairman. But I've been on the committee for a long time, and I can tell you that the Education Committee, the legislative leadership, my colleagues, Russ Morin, Paul Doyle, Tony Guerrero here in Wethersfield, we are absolutely committed to supporting from the legislature's perspective, and the governor, who made early childhood a major plank in his reform bill this past session, and while there were parts of it that were extremely controversial, this part was not. This was not controversial. What was the case was we were hoping for more dollars, more slots, more opportunities, and for towns like Wethersfield that may not be, though listed as one of the underperforming school districts or having underperforming schools. And that's a fight we will continue. And as the economy gets better, we hope that we can do more for communities that we represent that may not get the attention but need the attention from the state in this regard. So I just want to say that you have a partner in the legislature and you have a partner in the governor on this issue. And some of you may know that the governor, when he was mayor of Stamford, led the way in terms of creating universal preschool in his town. And they have a lot more resources than most in Stamford, but still it was his initiative, and I'm hoping that he will lead the way in bringing more and more towns in the state to universal preschool. And in fact, there is money put towards a study to look at what resources would be necessary to do that. I'd just like to take a minute, if I could, to talk about what I think is so critical here in Wethersfield. And that is that we backload resources on a lot of things. We backload resources on education, remediation, and so forth. And I think that that is so backwards. And this collaborative and this effort, I'm so proud of the people, and I want to be as supportive as I can in my, not only my words, but in the case of us as legislators, with our vote and our energy to bring resources to support it. But in the end, it's going to be this, it's a trite term, but document that doesn't sit on a shelf somewhere, but has to be a living breathing document that brings people of diverse backgrounds to the table. First of all, let me say, I look around the room and I see a majority of women, and if you want to get something done, you ask women to do it. There's no surprise that this room is filled with women. But I also see different faces. I see faces of color. I see a diverse room here, and that's really, really good, and I congratulate all of you for your hard work in that regard. And as someone from Hartford, who represents, I will say parenthetically, the largest Latino population as any state senator, it's an important community, and it's one that's growing here in town. And it's one that needs to be brought into this process. So many parents, and this is a statistic that doesn't surprise you, if parents don't have a successful educational experience, it is much, much more difficult to then have their children realize the value of education. If education is not spoken about in the home, if it isn't made a priority, often, not always, but often, you see the pattern continue. And Wethersfield has a chance to do what a lot of communities haven't been able to do, and that is to make this town culturally diverse and successful. It doesn't have to become a transitional community. It can be one where people of diverse backgrounds, different backgrounds, can realize common objectives and living together. And education is at the heart of that. We haven't done a good job of it in Hartford. Wethersfield, with this effort and going forward and reaching out and meeting families, meeting mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers and uncles, and inviting people in, and that will be a challenge. That will not be easy. I tell you now, it will not be easy. And you've already experienced that, I'm sure. But I hope, and I want to be part of it, and I know Russ Morin wants to be part of it. We talk about this a lot, and Paul Doyle and Tony Guerrera, along with the mayor and the council. This is not a D&R issue. This is about the future of Wethersfield, and what kind of town will it be? I'm representing it now for 16 years. I love this town, and I want to keep it, help you together keep it strong. No issue, not the issues I raised before, taxes or revenues or roads or sporting fields. They're important, but no issue rises anywhere near to the level in terms of what will keep Wethersfield strong, like education. And no issue in education will matter anywhere near as much, no matter how great a job the superintendent does. And I know he's going to be, is and will be a great superintendent going forward, and how great a job the mayor and the council do to keep taxes under control. It's amazing what they do to be able to manage those resources here at Wethersfield. But in the end, if children coming in the door, the first day of school in kindergarten, aren't ready, people in town will start, people who think about where they want to live, and it's about where you want to live rather than where you have to live, will begin to choose elsewhere. And that's never been the case here at Wethersfield. And I want to be part of the effort to make sure that never is the case. I thank you for your work, your commitment on this, and I hope that you will continue to involve us in the process, formally and informally, but in terms of resources that can help to supplement what the town is doing already is very important, and we commit our ability to do that as the four of us in the legislature representing Wethersfield. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Senator Fonfera. Our next speaker is Dr. Lisa Honenfeld. She is the Vice President for Health Initiatives at the Children's Health and Development Institute of Connecticut, which is part of the Children's Fund. She oversees efforts to strengthen the quality and accessibility of primary and preventative health care for children and families. One of the taglines is healthy, so we're very fortunate to have Dr. Honenfeld here with us this evening. So please help me welcome her to the podium.
Thank you. I too need to begin my comments this evening by just congratulating you all on really a phenomenal job in putting together a plan to address early childhood issues and get kids ready for school here in Wethersfield. I work with a lot of communities and I visit a lot of communities. And I am not lying when I say to you that you really have, you've just done a great job, not only in the issues that you've chosen to address and the background material you've put together to justify addressing those issues, but also really in the breadth of individuals, agencies, parents, and stakeholders that you've involved in this initiative is just fantastic, and you should all be very proud of yourselves. And I feel like things, as the Senator said, as Senator Fonfara said, I do believe that Wethersfield will remain a town where people do want to live and do want to raise their children and their families, and you will all have played a very important part of that. My job tonight is to convince you about how important health is to children's early development. And we heard a lot about education in schools, but I'm going to try to make the case to you and convince you that the role that health plays in getting children ready for school and ensuring that kids are ready for school is huge. And you've recognized a lot of that in your plan. And you've gone back to prenatal care, so you've definitely recognized that. One of the things, has anybody ever heard of the National Childhood Longitudinal Study? All right, well, I'm one of these egghead academics, so, I go right to that kind of stuff. It's a great study. It's longitudinal, looking at children for years. But the latest cohort of children, upon leaving kindergarten, when teachers and parents rated those children and looked at the children who were lagging, and then started looking at other issues that those children had, very surprisingly, only 6% of all the children who were lagging at the end of kindergarten, probably weren't ready to start school at kindergarten, only 6% of them had only cognitive issues. 30% of them had socio-emotional issues, and about 36% of them had health issues, and a variety, and most of them really had issues that were interconnected between health, mental health, and cognitive. And so if we can address those health issues and we can do something about those, you'll have gone a long way towards getting kids ready for school here in Wethersfield. So what can you do beyond what you've put in your plan, which is excellent? One thing I want to urge you to do, I promised someone here tonight I wasn't going to have more work for them. Who did I promise? I said, it's not going to be more work for you. Right, I said. I don't want to hear the house stuff. I said, promise not more work for you. One thing I really want to urge you to do is to engage child health providers in your work. The child health providers here in Wethersfield, but also I bet a lot of the families here in town see pediatric providers, pediatricians or family physicians from other communities. And it's okay to expand your scope, to expand your boundaries a little bit and go after those child health providers. Child health providers are in a very unique position here in our society. They see almost 100% of the kids who are going to end up in your schools, because nobody goes to preschool, nobody goes to camp, nobody goes to school, nobody plays sports unless they visited a child health provider, had their immunizations, and had a variety of other screenings. I noticed in your plan that you've used the blue school forms for some of your data. I think that's very forward-thinking, and we're actually working on some initiatives now to engage more communities in doing exactly what you've done. They're a valuable source of information, and the thing to remember about those is that a child health provider actually completed one side of those forms. So all of your children who are going to end up in your early childhood programs or end up in your preschools and eventually end up in your public schools have been to see a child health provider. So I urge you to engage child health providers and maybe identify a physician champion who can bring along his or her colleagues in doing that. Once you get those child health providers, what can you do with them, and how can you engage them in this work, and how can you get them to contribute to the work you do? One great way, and this is now we're going into, leave health for a second and look at your developmental goals and your developmental strategy. The American Academy of Pediatrics actually says that all child health providers should screen children for developmental risk at 9 months of age, at 18 months of age, and then at 30 months of age. And that's screening with a formal tool. I don't know if your providers here in Weathersfield are doing that or in your neighboring communities, but I think that's worth finding out. And I think it's worth to talking to some of the practices in town and in the surrounding towns about implementing developmental screening. The good news here is that they're paid for doing that. They're paid over and above what they're paid by insurance for the child health visit. And my organization, the Child Health and Development Institute, will even do that training for you to teach them how to do developmental screening. So again, developmental screening, 9 months, 18 months, and 30 months. A great opportunity to identify children very, very early, connect them through Child Development Info Line to birth to 3. I saw that you had recognized in your plan the value of those programs. And we know that the earlier children are identified, the earlier their risk is identified and their needs are, the better we can address those needs and have kids be ready for school. So that's one thing I urge you all to do, to get those child health providers and get them doing developmental screening. And again, my organization, we do the Educating Practices in the Community program. We visit more than 80 pediatric and family medicine practices every year. We talk to them about developmental screening, about screening for autism, and a variety of other important early childhood health issues. So please think about doing that, and we would love to help you do that. I also urge you to get your pediatric providers involved in Reach Out and Read. I notice Reach Out and Read, does everybody know what that is? It's actually a program that brings books, volunteer readers, early literacy promotion to pediatric practices. It involves a pediatrician, it involves volunteers in the waiting room. It began at Boston Children's Hospital and actually has an excellent evidence base for its effectiveness in promoting reading and literacy in young children. I noticed that was a big goal in your plan. And here in Connecticut, out of New Haven, we do have a local Reach Out and Read organization, and I think they would love to work with you on promoting that in pediatric practices. Obesity. That's another issue in your plan that this is a hot issue now for pediatricians. Next week I'm going to the American Academy of Pediatrics meeting in New Orleans. And when you sign up for these, all the pharmaceutical companies and all the people who are going to be have exhibits there start sending you their information. Drop by our booth, see this, see that. I would say at least half of them are about obesity. People have obesity programs. Here in Connecticut, I don't think you're that far from Middletown. I know in Middletown there's a large childhood obesity collaborative for pediatricians. And if you can get your pediatricians involved in that, get them doing some BMI screening, get them doing some motivational counseling, it's a good chance that they will be able to contribute to you meeting your goals in your early childhood plan. I don't have much more to say to you tonight in terms of health, but what I do want to say is that your plan does an excellent job in outlining what you're going to do in the area of health, what you're going to do in the area of development, and how you're going to connect families to the community. I believe that by involving your child health providers, you can go a long way towards addressing all three of those things, not just the health. And as a result, I do think you'll see some changes, and you'll turn some of those curves in your results-based accountability program to address children's health. So thank you and good luck. And again, please call us. We would love to connect you with other communities. We'd love to work with you, and especially to support you in working with the child health providers in your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carmenfeld. I would like now to invite Marie Massaro to the podium. She's been a wonderful asset throughout the community planning process, and as Kathy mentioned, the key editor of our plan.
I think everybody wants to hear what the plan is now, because we've talked about the plan. You have copies of it on the table. There are a few copies, and it's also online. If you visit the Wethersfield Public Schools site and you click on Our Town, you'll see the Early Childhood Collaborative. So if you are not a paper person, you'd rather have it online, it's available there too. So let's kind of dive right in. Let me just kind of set the context a little bit with a little bit of information about Wethersfield. I know most of you are residents, but just some context for the population that we're talking about. You see the statistics about the size of the population. I think one of the more interesting things, 20% of our population 18 and under, 10% 9 and younger, which is really our target group. 22% of our population is 65 and older, which is high compared to Hartford County's about 15%. So we do have quite a few more senior citizens in our town than a lot of surrounding towns. And going back to I just promoted you, Senator Fonfara's comments, we do have increasing diversity in town. You see the demographics, 90% white, but you see the 5.6% Hispanic. That is definitely a growing population in our community. And I think the last bullet point there is really startling for people, because the diversity is really starting to show up in our school district, with over 25 languages other than English spoken in our district. And you see the top 3 languages there, not only Spanish, but Serbo-Croatian and Albanian. We have a large Eastern European population in this community. So that obviously brings a lot of great diversity and a lot of wonderful things to the community. There are children who also need, obviously, some support services because of language issues as well. Whoops. There we go. So I'll give you a little bit of context about how the plan was built. I'm not going to go into a lot of process for you, but we did use the process. It's very community collaborative based. We've stressed that a lot already tonight. Really, we want to engage the people who are most affected with what we're doing. So that means getting parents to the table, and we've had wonderful parent involvement, early care providers, the school district, everybody who is involved in this. It's not a top-down. It's truly bringing all the parties to the table to be engaged in the process. And the planning strategy that we used, the focus was a results-based accountability, which is a framework for making decisions. And you'll see the plan has a certain flow and a certain format, and that answers the following questions about what we know and the current conditions and the impact of those conditions. So we might look at prenatal care and say, what do we know about that? Why is it important? And then go into what the statistics are in Wethersfield. Maybe compare them to other groups where we have data that's available. What are we doing now in the community? What can we do? And how do we know that we've made a difference? The performance measures is a really important piece for us. To just say that we're going to do something and then never track it or measure it, we need to make sure that we're actually holding ourselves accountable for making progress on these objectives. So the process really combines data and community input. This truly was a process where we did, using our results statement as sort of our guiding principle, we went out into the community, we did focus groups, we did key stakeholder interviews, we did a door-to-door survey in communities that are not typically represented at the table for us. We did the community survey, which had a terrific response rate. We'll talk about that more later. So in total, there was about 750 community members who had some sort of input into this process. We used data from a lot of state and local agencies. Again, the school district has been really helpful to us. The Central Connecticut Health District, the state has been really helpful. And when we look at the data, we try to look at at least 3 years so we can tell if there's a trend. To look at 1 year in a vacuum obviously isn't going to tell you anything. Where we didn't have data, we've tried to identify opportunities to develop that data, like using the blue forms, as you mentioned, Lisa. There's a section of the plan that's around key findings and themes. And I think to Senator Fanfare's point, we do have a very fortunate community. We have a lot of children who are doing really well, who are thriving. We also have children who are really struggling, and we have, it's really kind of a mixed bag, and so we do struggle sometimes, I think, to identify resources because we're not considered a particularly needy community. That doesn't mean we don't have needs. Our data is maybe in line with some state statistics, but that doesn't mean that it's good. Just because we're consistent with the level that the state is at in terms of our reading scores or whatever, doesn't mean that it's an acceptable level. And you'll see there's a piece in the plan that talks about child poverty in Wethersfield increasing. There was some 3-year data, and it's got a somewhat high margin of error because it is a sampling, but it's showing that children in poverty in Wethersfield has gone up to 7.7%, so more than tripled in the last 5 or 7 years. So obviously there's something going on. Now, part of that is probably the economic downturn, and the question is, monitoring that over time, is that something that's changing in town, or is that just a temporary situation? We don't really know the answer to that. So you see there's another issue is coordination of resources. We have a lot of services that are good, that are available to children. The families don't necessarily know how to access them, or they're not coordinated into one place. And that was something that came up again and again in each of the teams. And obviously, we don't just collect the data and then forget about it. It's not a plan that sits on a shelf. We have to continue to monitor this data and track it. So 3 areas of focus, which you've heard about many times: healthy, developmentally successful learners and connected to the community. We had 3 teams that worked on these issues. So we'll start with healthy. Within healthy, there were 2 major areas. One is adequate prenatal care, and the second is healthy eating and physical activity. Adequate prenatal care is a very specific measure, and it talks about the first visit to a doctor when a woman is pregnant, and whether that is done in a timely fashion or not, and subsequent visits to the doctor. It does not necessarily address how good the care is once you get there. It's strictly a matter of getting to the doctor and the timeliness of those visits. So in Wethersfield, the data lags a little bit behind the State Department of Public Health. The most recent data we had is 2009, so we have to look at going back. We looked as far back as 2004, and you can see 24 to 33% of Wethersfield moms weren't getting adequate prenatal care. Now that number did drop, as you can see, to 17% in 2009. We don't know whether that's a positive trend line or whether that's a temporary dip and whether it's going to go back up. So again, monitoring the data to see. The other piece that we looked at, this is predominantly white, non-Hispanic women, and it is not, we have a very low teen birth rate in Wethersfield, because there was maybe a question about, was this maybe teens who wanted to, maybe didn't know they were pregnant or didn't want to get to the doctor early, but we have virtually no teen births in Wethersfield, very, very low numbers. So this is clearly adult women, and we don't know why that is. So the impact obviously is getting adequate prenatal care is really important to having healthy birth outcomes, which then sets the stage for all future learning. So the strategies around adequate prenatal care are to find out what's going on. We know what the numbers are, but we don't know why the numbers are the way they are. So is it transportation? Is it education? People don't know whether it's important. They don't think it's important. Is it people are pressed for time and they just don't get to the doctor? So the process of the strategies around that particular piece are to interview providers, talk to them and see what their experience is. Sometimes we wonder if it's an insurance issue, if people don't have insurance and don't think they can get care. And then to also talk with recent new moms or expectant moms in Wethersfield. And so that's a piece where we need to dig a little bit deeper and find out what's going on. The second major strategy is around healthy eating and physical activity. And that's obviously a very broad category, but it encompasses, I think, as Lisa already addressed, so much of if children are not healthy and they're not at a good weight, they're not exercising, they're not getting proper nutrition, it's going to affect everything else for them. So we did use, as Lisa mentioned, the blue forms, and any parent is familiar with the blue forms because they give you a headache the summer before school starts in kindergarten and 6th grade because you've got to get to the doctor and you've got to get them filled out. But they are a valuable source of information. So we asked the school nurses, bless their hearts, because this is all paper, to sit down and calculate this information for us to get the data about the children's height and weight in kindergarten and then that same group of kids in 6th grade. So the 3 classes we looked at are older kids, right, because we had to have at least 6th grade data, so this is 8th, 9th, 10th graders now. And we kind of had a theory that maybe they would start out at a healthy weight and that we'd see it creep up over time because kids maybe spend more time in front of TVs and in front of computers as they get older. But actually, it showed that the kids are, on average, about 30% are overweight or obese in kindergarten and in 6th grade. There wasn't really much of a change. They were coming in kindergarten at 5 years old, 30% overweight or obese. So that was obviously something that's disconcerting, but it's also in line with national trends as much as we can see. And again, not that that's acceptable, but it's an issue. And obviously the impact is pretty clear in terms of there's surging rates of type 2 diabetes and children having high blood pressure by the time they're teenagers, so obviously it's a significant issue. The strategies around healthy eating and physical activity are around providing parent education, reaching out to parents, especially for really young children because it sets the stage for their behaviors, their healthy eating habits and so forth throughout their lives. Working with the schools on the wellness policy, and that we already have a wonderful wellness committee in the school district, but maybe targeting much younger children because we probably need to start much earlier in terms of developing healthy habits. And then looking at a community-wide awareness campaign around these issues. And some of it is around helping children and families access physical activity, access nutrition programs where there are needs. So those are some of the strategies around healthy. And I want to turn it over to Hillary Norship for a minute because she's our chair of our team. If she could say a few things about this.
Hello? No. Nope. It's the hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Oh well. Go up there. Go up there. Yeah, just go.
Here, you can just yell.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming and attending tonight. I just want to say that I'm really proud to be part of this collaborative. It's been a great experience working with everybody. And I just wanted to thank the members of our health team tonight. That includes Sean Fongini from the Tri-Town YMCA, Nancy Stillwell. Now I'm always going to get this wrong. Weathersfield, because I get Weathersfield Family and Youth Social and Youth Services. Thank you, Nancy. And Pat Meskel, also from Weathersfield Family and Why? All the towns have different names. Each have different names, and then I get very confused. But anyway, and also I'd like to thank Marie and Cindy because they sat in on all our meetings, and also Kathy Bagley is on the committee, and I'd like to thank her for all her leadership and help in this effort. The thing that really, I'm a parent of a child who has special needs, so I really understand the importance of developmental screenings, as was talked about, and also about early intervention with your child. I feel really strongly about that. And although I don't live in Weathersfield, I do feel it should be cut across all communities, caring for our children, and they're our future. So we really need to care about them and implement strategies that will help them in the future. And what stood out for me really from the health perspective, the BMI, it wasn't really a surprise, but I really think that we need to concentrate on that because it's just going to keep coming up. It's a hot topic, and so we really want to take a three-pronged approach with this obesity effort. We don't want to just blame parents, blame the school, it's everybody's problem. So we would like to take a three-pronged approach and include community, parents, schools, even kids themselves, and also providers, as was noted. And really perhaps have a collaborative, like a community campaign. There's several out there that exist. There's a program called We Can, which is the National Institute Blood and Lung and Heart Institute. And it's a We Can initiative, and it's a community-wide initiative that really doesn't cost a lot, but it can affect a lot of children. And there's also 210. Sounds like 9210. And that's another community-wide initiative that includes all aspects of the community. So I don't think we should just focus on schools or just focus on parents. It needs to be everybody. And that's what we're going to strive for with the health committee, what we're going to move forward doing that. So again, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank my boss, Paul Hutchin, for letting me participate in this collaborative. Yeah, I know you can come all sucking up, but anyway. But I want to thank him, and also our board of directors for letting me participate, because it's been a great experience. And it was like a kid in a candy store when I saw the finished product. I was like, I ran up to Cindy, I'm like, look at the plan. And so I was really excited about it, and I continue to act as chair and really enjoy the process. Thank you, everyone.
Hillary. Hillary's always good for bringing a smile to everybody's face. Let me just move on now to the next section, which is developmentally successful learners. And within that, there are two major areas of focus. One is around early learning. Yes, that's Matt Torres, baby. He's so proud. That's little Grace. And really, we're talking about, as we've already talked about a little bit, about parents as first teachers and caregivers as first teachers for children.
I'll go back.
I can leave it up there.
That's my kid.
She is adorable. I had to have that picture. And I have to tell you, I think I have that book. I read that book. Is that Moo Ba La La La?
Yes.
Yes. I still know that book by heart. I'll spare you. So we looked at the data. There's not a lot of, obviously, data around the status of readiness for very young children, because we're not testing them when they're 2 and 3 years old. So the best data that we had available to us was the kindergarten entrance inventory, which is a screening that is done in the fall of kindergarten year. And we looked at the two areas of language and literacy as precursors to children's ability to develop good reading skills over the long term. And it is a snapshot. It's an imperfect measure in that it's subjective somewhat with the teachers administering it. But we did look at the data that tells us that Wethersfield children are below their peers in terms of achieving the performance level 3 on the inventory, and they are below levels in the state. So we know that these children are not walking in the door ready to learn at the level that we would like them to be. And a lot of research tells us that children who start behind stay behind. They're constantly catching up, and they never quite close that gap. So the more that we can obviously close that gap before they walk in the door, the better off they'll be over the long term. So the strategies around this, we started to talk a little bit about organizing information and resources, and that was a really consistent theme among all the teams, that parents really need information, and it's in lots of different places. The school district offers some things, the library, there's a lot of stuff out there, but ideally we'd love to have an opportunity for parents to be able to just focus and access resources, healthcare, education, everything all in one spot. Workshops and information about early childhood literacy for parents, age-appropriate books and reading materials, going back, I think, to the programs that you referenced through the pediatrician's offices. Some of those are opportunities that we want to explore. And then shared professional development, and this is around working with early care providers and kindergarten, first grade teachers to make sure that they're in sync with what they want children to know and be able to do when they walk in the door, so that they can work together preparing children before they get to kindergarten. And that includes something that was done through this group a while ago, and we want to revisit it and strengthen it, and that's the kindergarten transition plan, that's exactly what it's focused on. The second area is reading success. So obviously having children ready for school when they walk in is a key. And the next piece is reading as sort of a major indicator of all other academic success. CMTs, I think for most people, this is probably the data point people hear an awful lot about as parents and educators. We talk about CMTs an awful lot, but it's a very good indicator. It's great data that's available to us, and so we looked at third grade reading scores. And over the course of 2006 to 2011, about 40% of our kids did not meet the goal for reading. That's about 3 to 8% below comparable towns in our area. And when we broke the data down further, and I think this goes back to some of the points that I made earlier, our children who are eligible for free and reduced price meals are scoring significantly lower. So obviously it's a reflection of a lot of the challenges that these children face at home, whether it's access to books, whether it's parents having the time to read to them when they're very young and outside of school. And then we have a small number, as we've discussed, of English language learner students in town, and their scores are really not where we want them to be at all. You can see the charts in the plan detailed a little bit more. And obviously the impact is that if they're not reading well by third grade, it's an indicator of where they're going to be for the rest of their academic lives. So the strategies are working with schools and families to encourage consistent home routines. We did focus groups with teachers, like kindergarten through third grade teachers, and one of the things that they really stressed was, and this is regardless of income level, that sometimes kids are just really busy and families are busy. Sometimes it is an economic issue, but children don't have consistent bedtimes. They don't have consistent routines in terms of places to do homework. That was something that came back to us through discussions with parents too, that they're feeling stressed. So, as a matter of fact, I don't know if she's still here. One of our members, Kim, is actually doing a workshop tonight about managing your family time at the library. So clearly it's an issue for all parents regardless of income. And a lot of that is modeling behaviors for children. The 95210 campaign that Hillary mentioned is 9 hours of sleep a night, 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, less than 2 hours of screen time a day, 1 hour of physical activity, and 0 sugar sweetened beverages.